Good morning and welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. Chris, I don't know about you, but it's starting to get very cold here in Scotland. I've had the heating on this morning as I've prepared for this. How are you doing over where you are?
It's a bit miserable and a bit cold and a bit damp this morning. If you're Real Betis, I'm sure they're going to hate it. So hopefully it stays this way until Thursday night. Might be a wee bit cold in the press box, but it's getting to that stage of the season. The big jacket, the boots, and the long johns will be getting looked out before we know it.
Yeah, not looking forward to that too much. And you see some of the comments, and people are saying evening from Sydney, in fact, not morning. You can imagine what the weather will be like over there compared to where we are, both on the west coast of Scotland.
It's okay for some. Good morning, good evening to you, Ian. Hope you're well.
Yeah, it's me and Chris again today, so it's a case of deja vu from yesterday. So hopefully we're not covering the same talking points. It's been quite a quiet couple of days, isn't it, on the Rangers front, Chris?
Apart from Instagram or a social media post from Danilo, also saying that his surgery went well. Still no time frame on him, unfortunately. I know we said yesterday morning we would try and find out. Club not saying anything officially on it yet. The manager's doing his presser Wednesday about lunchtime. I think it's 12:45 tomorrow. So I'm sure that'll be one of the first things put to him to try and get an update. But Danilo does seems in good spirits. Everything looks to have gone well, thankfully. It's now just that all-important bit of how long is he going to be out for. If it's no more than a couple of weeks, Rangers are one to watch.
Yes, it's difficult to speculate with those injuries. I remember when it happened, isn't it? Everyone kind of goes on Google and searches, fractured cheekbones, etc., how long can a player be out for? But it can vary very much depending on the kind of severity of the injury in that individual case. So, like Chris said, Michael Beale will be doing his post-match press conference tomorrow. I presume there'll be a player up as well. We don't really find that out until the day of the actual press conference, which player is accompanying Michael Beale and speaking in these things. So, for about 12:45 tomorrow, midday to 2 o'clock tomorrow. Keep your eyes on the Rangers Review for all the latest from Michael Beale. Chris will be at that press conference. I've got to look at some of the comments. This comment made me feel a bit better, Chris, when Ian was saying a wet and miserable Carlisle. I'm looking at my window and it's horrific, the weather today. Felt better when I had this, and then I had this comment here. 34 degrees in Thailand, but he's had the misfortune having to come to the UK next week, so prepare yourself for that, my man. Just looking at the striker situation generally, Chris, I know you wrote your piece about Danilo yesterday and how he has to be the main man. You picked up on it yesterday. It's something I kind of picked up on when I was listening to Michael Beale after the game, and he mentioned the little issues that Danilo's been having. A lot was made of the fact that Rangers' big new signing, the region of £6 million this summer, didn't start. Arguably the three biggest games of the season, against the two games against PSV, and then a game against Celtic as well. Do you think that could be a factor in why he didn't play those games? We don't obviously know what the issues are. Again, we'll probably find out more tomorrow, so it's a bit of a stab in the dark here. But I mean, that alludes to the fact maybe he didn't play those games, Chris.
I think generally, rather than just a comment on the issues that Danilo's had to go through, I think just generally it's important that the fans do give players a wee bit of leeway. I had a piece on their website last week with Alec McLeish, Mark Gately, and Marco Negri talking about how you settle in at a club like Rangers from a player's perspective, and speaking to Big Ek about how you sign a squad, how you build a squad, and how you get players to really kind of become accustomed to life in Glasgow and at Rangers as quickly as possible. Because coming to a club like this, it's not easy. I know there's a huge expectation, and everybody will say the guys are well paid, and they are, and they've got everything done for them, and there's support staff at the club that will help them out. But something that Cyril Dessers mentioned, I think it was before the PSV home leg, and he said, "I'm going home to build IKEA furniture," and I got a laugh, and it was a nice line, good in the press conference, gave the boys an intro, but it also gave you an insight into these guys that are coming into new clubs, coming to new countries and new cities, and having to find their way about Glasgow. They might not have a family with them. If they are, then they've got schools to sort for kids potentially. Need to sort a house, need to sort a car. You've got life admin stuff to do, even just getting insurance and getting your heating set up and getting your Sky set up. There's all these things to do that do have to be ticked off, and that is at the same time as performing in front of 50,000 every week and having to win Old Firm games and qualify for the Champions League. That's not said with any get the small violins out for these guys. That's their job. That's what they're paid to do. That's the expectation on them. And you have to come into a club like Rangers and hit the ground running. If you don't understand that, then don't sign on the dotted line, because that's what you sign up for. But in some cases, it does just take players that wee bit longer to actually come in and feel at home and to get themselves up to the kind of level that we'll expect from them. I think by the time you get to this stage of the season, and we've had 9-10 games, competitive games, you've had your pre-season games, by now you've almost had enough time to get everything else sorted. You should be up to speed with the squad. You should be integrating yourself into that team and that dressing room environment. By the time we get to now, there's very, very few excuses left for these guys. And that applies to Danilo, it applies to Dessers, it applies to Lamos and Sima, everybody that's coming in, whether they come from down south or whether they've come in from abroad. When you get to this stage now, you really need to start delivering. And as we said yesterday, Euan, there is no time like the present for these guys. A huge game on Thursday night. And if Rangers could go and get a result, if they can go and win, it'd be great. Even a good performance and a draw gets them off and running in the section. It's a good step forward in the section. And that then just kicks them into the Motherwell game. It kicks them into a Livingston game, and hopefully it kicks them into Aberdeen game. And hopefully we can start to build a bit of momentum throughout this period heading into the next international break.
Completely agree, Chris, and so does the origami dinosaur. I'd like to see if he can make one, maybe send one to the office for all of us. Don't have a favourite dinosaur if you was going to ask anyway, but yeah, patience is a virtue famously, but it's time to, you have to give players time, Chris, but as we stand now, that's 10 games into the new season, so that's kind of a good block of games now. And I mean, I suppose for players, that kind of bedding in period for some of them will be over, and for others, it might still kind of exist for a little bit. See, if we're looking at, we said we'll do this, so we'll do it now before we go on and talk about the European, is look at the transfers in general now. It's difficult because some players have played more games than others. You look at people like Dujon Sterling and Kieran Dull, who've not played as many games as likes of Jack Butland or Cyril Dessers, and even you've got someone like Jose Cifuentes who came in. There's a lot of excitement. He's not been involved recently. Put you on the spot here, Chris. Again, I love doing this. It's my favourite thing to do. Unqualified successes from the transfer business. I think you're looking at, from my point of view, I'll give you my opinion, you're looking at Butland really as the main one. I don't know if you put anyone in that category.
In terms of being a guaranteed 7 or 8 out of 10 success, it's
7 or 8 out of 10 or higher success so far.
It's Jack Butland for me. I'd be amazed if anybody else comes up with anything more than that. I think a couple of them have the potential to get into that group, but if you look at what we've seen so far, whether it's through form or through fitness or just the performances they've been able to put in, Butland for me stands head and shoulders amongst as the best of them so far. And I'd be amazed if MD disagrees. By all means, let us know. But I'd be really surprised if there's anybody that doesn't rate Jack Butland as a pick of the signing so far. I think he's been really impressive, and he seems to have that character about him as well. The club had a media day maybe about a week or so into the summer. Got to speak to 4 of the new signings. Butland was the most impressive of them that day as well. He spoke well after the defeat at Kelly on the opening day of the season. He spoke well in the mix zone after the PSV game as well. And I think he's just someone who gets it. You can see how he has gone into the dressing room, made a big impact, and not to come in and replace Alan McGregor and make the start that he has certainly bodes well. The only downside of Butland, I don't know if it's a point a lot of people have actually considered, at his age, he will be a target for English Premier League clubs over the next couple of seasons. If you look at they also have to tick the certain boxes that we do in terms of European squads as well. And I think Butland will be a target. I think he's someone that there will be a bit of interest in come the end of the season. I know Rangers got him on a free transfer, and they also will make money on that transfer. But I think he's someone that they may have to fight to hold on to, just given how impressive he's been and the age and the profile and how good he is as well.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? The fact about is you look at the English and you look at the clubs like Man City and people like Richard Wright, who's arguably got the best job in the world, isn't it? He travels around the world, picks up Champions Leagues and league trophies, couple hours of training in the morning, then that's him for the week. But yeah, it's a very good point, but perhaps I won't dwell on it too long. Cold days.
No, let's not get the week off to a negative start by trying to sell the best.
Depressing thoughts on a Tuesday morning when the cold starts to hit. But guys, do as always hit a like it on this video. It does help us massively. And let us know your kind of verdicts on the summer transfers and the ratings you'd give them. Just below that category, Chris, who else has impressed you in flashes, and maybe not as consistently as Jack has?
I think as I wrote in that yesterday, I think Danilo has looked good in flashes. I thought the way that he took his goal on Saturday was really encouraging. Obviously, he was aware of how the move was unfolding, going down the right hand side, and he just looks the type of guy that's going to score goals from good goal scoring areas now, in between the posts, just like the header against Livingston at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago. I thought his finish against Morton, yes, it was only Morton. I thought he took that one really accomplishedly as well. And I think you can see from him that if you can get a run of games out of him, I think he will prove worth the fee. I think he'll live up to the hype. And if only we could, as we said yesterday, it's such a shame that this injury has come at such a bad time for Rangers. But I think once he's back and once he's fit, I think he will be the pick of the rest of them, hopefully.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing, isn't it? Picking up that injury in the fashion he did after scoring the goal, and he looks like he'll be out for a few weeks at least, and that's quite disappointing. The other signings, again, you mean Cifuentes is one that it was high hopes for. I think Michael Beale said he was. I can't remember exactly what he said. He said he'd take Rangers to another level. I think he said it over the half time I was there, so I should remember exactly what he said. But it was something along those lines. Do you think he'll come back in on Thursday
night? To be honest, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Michael goes a bit more solid, or goes very solid, and we see Raskin, Jack, and Lundstrom in that midfield three, just to try and kind of quell some of the threat that Betis have from middle to front. But I know Cifuentes, even if he doesn't get the start on Thursday, I don't think we should read too much into it. Now, we're speaking about players adapting to new cities and new clubs. He's got the biggest adaptation of them all. Also coming in from America, a very, very different league, very different way of living. He'd only been there for a couple of years after moving up from Ecuador. So he's also got a language barrier to try and overcome as well. And I know he's someone that the club are really confident can, as you say, go to that next level. There's a lot of progression in them. And I think out of all of them, he's the one that I think is actually a bit of money to be made there. If you look at the profile of a number of them, like Dessers, for example, Lammers, probably slightly older. You might get your money back on them, but you're not going to go and make huge profits on them in terms of a player trading model. Cifuentes, other end of that scale, I think he fits into that model. Rangers put a lot of work in over a long time to convince him that Rangers and Ibrox was the place to come and play his football. They had his agents over for the Old Firm game towards the end of the season and basically gave them the big sell. And what a day that turned out to be. They couldn't have picked a better game with the team playing so well and Ibrox at its best and a good Old Firm win in the sunshine. So that all worked in well. They convinced Cifuentes and his agent and his family of the project, and they showed them how his career can develop here. It's been an okay start. He obviously missed out on a couple of games, but I don't think we should be too harsh on him. And I think he's certainly one that once he does get up to speed, if he's still here in 4 or 5 years, something's gone wrong. He should be the next one of come in, hopefully win something with him, and then sell him on within a couple of years for a fairly significant profit on what they've invested in him.
Yeah, and there's been interest before in the Cifuentes from clubs down south. I think Brighton are one of the clubs who looked at him, Leeds United as well. So it shows that he is on the radar of these clubs, and if he can perform well, I suppose the European stage is a perfect place to do that, isn't it? Again, these big games when there's more eyes on players. No disrespect to the clubs in Scotland, but bigger clubs would watch European games as more of a gauge of what level these players are at, rather than against St Mirren's or St Mirren are flying at the moment, but I mean St Johnstone or Ross County. Denzel makes a good point here, just saying it's hard to maybe come to a kind of sweeping verdict on players at the moment, because a lot of them are coming off the bench or playing in and out the team, are not getting a regular run on the side, which is a really good point. Other than Jack Butland, who plays every game. Looking ahead to Thursday as well, I mean, Kemar Roofe has came back into the side and he's done well recently. So he's been unlucky to have kind of 2 goals chopped off in the last 2 games for extremely tight calls, for use of a better word. Simply, as John says, will he start on Thursday?
I would think so, yes. I think the manager's spoken highly of him, as when we were talking about Tom Lawrence yesterday. He was one of the guys, like Tom, that the manager continually referenced, not just throughout the summer, but towards the end of last season. He was always bringing Kemar's name up to say, well, once he gets fit, once we've got him back in the squad. I'm loath to use the old cliche of an injured player is like a new signing, but we've seen that little of Kemar Roofe over the last year or so. It does feel something fresh and almost like something new having him back in the squad. If you can get him fit, if you can get 30, 35 games over the course of a season, he'll score you 20 goals, because that's just what he's good at. And he's probably the best finisher, without wishing to disrespect Danilo, because I've not seen that much of him so far. I would, out of all the strikers at the club, if you had to put your house on someone to take a chance, you put it on Kemar Roofe, because he's shown that he can be a really accomplished finisher for Rangers. It's just that injury side of it. Hopefully he's over that now. I know he spoke to the Sunday newspaper guys a couple of weeks ago about the trials and tribulations that he's been through and everything he's going through in terms of this injury. Sounds like he's over it. From the guys that ran that interview, you could tell he had a real bit between his teeth and a real kind of hunger and real drive about him to come back and prove that he's not this injury-jinxed striker, and prove that he can be the striker of the 55 season again. If he can be, Rangers have got a really accomplished forward on their hands. And in terms of the team for Thursday night, as a couple of guys have said in the comments there, I would be surprised if he doesn't start on a night where it's imperative that Rangers take whatever chances they're able to carve out. As I said, I think Roofe's the man that you put your money on to go and take one of those chances.
Completely agree. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't in the starting lineup on Thursday. It's also quite telling, isn't it, that a lot of attackers have been brought to the club in the summer, but Kemar Roofe is arguably on Thursday night still the first name in the team sheet in that kind of attacking area as well, especially with Danilo being out. How much of a misdrink Todd Cantwell will be, not just generally, but especially in these kind of European games where Todd's not played a lot of European football in his career, obviously just at Rangers, and I think that you're obviously speaking to him a couple of times in the season. He's been really looking forward to these European nights at Ibrox as well. I'm sure it'll be a huge miss for not just the club but also for the player.
No, I'm sure he'll be distraught at having to miss out on these fixtures, because when you sign for a club like Rangers, that's one of the selling points. That when you're having those initial conversations with the manager, he'll be selling you on it's a big club with a great fan base, a wonderful stadium, great training facilities, but you get the chance to play in famous Old Firm games, you get a chance to play at Hampden in semi-finals and finals, and you get a chance to play European football. Also, the Champions League qualifiers didn't go well, but Rangers are now in a Europa League group that is winnable. There's games in there to really look forward to. I think the Betis one at Ibrox is probably the pick of them, and really looking forward to the Thursday night, getting back under the lights, and hopefully Rangers can produce a performance and a result that's fitting of the stage. If you're Todd Cantwell and you're having to sit in the stand and watch that unfold, much like that injured guys I've had in the last couple of years, think of like Yanis Hadji missing out on big European nights. Obviously Todd's in a different position and won't be out for that length of time, hopefully. But it was something actually Tom Lawrence mentioned when we spoke to him after the Ross County game a couple of weeks ago. he played a big part in helping Rangers get into the Champions League, and then had to miss out, and he was sitting either at home or in the stands while those games were unfolding and being played. And if you are a player, you want to test yourself at the highest level, these are the kind of occasions you come to a club like Rangers for. So I'm sure it'll be a real sore one for Todd. Hopefully he doesn't miss too many more of these group stage fixtures, because the team really need him. He's a type of player that can have a big impact on games like this, not just because he can create and score goals. He can also carry the ball. He can help get the team up the pitch. He's got that close control. He's good in those tight situations. Technically very good. Type of guy that European football should suit. Has the mentality where I think these are the ones that could bring out the best in him. And as Mr. Dinosaur says there, if I think the loss of Cantwell is a sore one for Rangers, offset slightly by Tom Lawrence coming back. But as you were saying yesterday, Euan, it depends on how many games Tom Lawrence can play in a week at present. Having put in the shift on Saturday, does that then rule him out of a start on Thursday night? Personally, I would think so. But that's not to say that he wouldn't have a part to play.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Tom Lawrence started on Thursday night, just as you said there, and I alluded to yesterday. Just the length of time he's been out for. He got a lot of minutes in his legs at the weekend, and playing again Thursday. I think you're more likely to see Tom Lawrence starting against Motherwell at the weekend, maybe coming off the bench on Thursday night. A lot has been made about Betis' injury crisis at the moment. I watched their game at the weekend, and they get beat 5-0 off Barcelona, but I don't think Rangers have João Felix, Rafinha, and Robert Lewandowski up front, so it might be a little bit of a distant prospect. I mean, I feel like whenever these games, European games, come ahead, you always see reports in foreign media about injury crises in the foreign camp, and then the manager speaks on the Wednesday before the game, and he's only missing one player. What do you make of Betis? This is such a cliche as well, Chris, but I mean, how important is it to get off to a good start at home at Ibrox, considering the next two games are away against Arias, Limassol, and then Sparta Prague?
I don't think, in terms of qualifying from the group, I wouldn't say it's imperative that Rangers winning on Thursday night. I think it's important, though, that they do pick up a point, put in a performance, and just give them something to build on. I've actually got a piece on Betis and Manuel Pellegrini coming on the website tomorrow. Spoken to a couple of guys who work covering La Liga to get a bit of insight into how the manager works and how he ticks and how he sets his side up, and also just what life is like in Seville, and the players and the fans over there. So hopefully the guys on the website enjoy reading that one tomorrow. In terms of the team and this injury crisis, I know they're a bit short at centre half. They've also got goalkeeping issues to worry about. Also, their keeper got taken off in that game at the weekend. Claudio Bravo is the man that may well come in if he's fit. So I think it's obviously a concern for Betis. If Bravo doesn't play, you would hope that Rangers then see the chance to go and try and test what is basically going to be Betis' third choice keeper. If they don't go and test him and the game doesn't go well, you know what the criticism towards the manager and the players are going to be, much like the criticism was after the Old Firm game. Now that was a Celtic defence that was there to be got at. That was a Celtic defence that was there to be tested and exploited. And if Betis turn up with a weak in the back line and a third choice goalkeeper, and Rangers don't play in the front foot and they try and test them out, then the criticism will follow if the game's not won. But the flip side of that is Rangers can't afford to go gung-ho. One of the themes of the piece I've got coming tomorrow is about how Betis control games. They're very fluent, they dictate play, a very technical side. But if Rangers can play with a bit more tempo than they have done this season, I think that's been a big problem for them. They've been a bit slow and a bit lackadaisical at times. If Rangers can play with a bit of tempo, get the ball forward, create chances, there's no reason why Rangers can't go and win this game. And if they do, on the back of an okay win at the weekend, again, it quietens the noise level down about the manager. Some of the new players can play well. It gets the fans back on side with them as well. So I think there's a lot riding on Thursday, not in terms of qualifying from the group. I think Rangers should qualify regardless of what happens on Thursday. but it's a really significant night in terms of the performance, just to see where they are, to judge against a very accomplished and very solid La Liga side.
Yeah, on the goalkeeping situation, Claudio Bravo, if he's back, then maybe a huge boost to Betis. But you think that's if he's not back, I think the young boy is called Vietes, who's like the B team goalie. I think he came on at the weekend against Barcelona. Had a difficult game. I watched the game. I thought he could have saved a couple of the goals. You think the atmosphere at Ibrox will be a huge factor, especially if they've got these inexperienced players playing, and it's imperative that the Rangers go and put pressure on them and play on the front foot from the off. They still do, however, have some very good players. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching Isco play as well. He's a player I loved at Real Madrid. Sometimes I think when you get to watch these players in real life, it's completely different from watching them on the telly. But hopefully he's well shackled by whoever plays in that kind of holding midfield role. For Rangers, just a comment here from Colin, who I believe I seen his message earlier. I meant to bring up Colin, so I apologise. It's your 8th wedding anniversary today. I didn't show the comment because I hope your missus wasn't watching, because a wee cheeky comment in there about it. But any news on Stephen Davis? I know that Michael Beale said he's back. He's in and around the club. He's doing bits and bobs. But I mean, is there any kind of update on when he could return to fitness, or if that will even be at Rangers this season?
No, that was I think it was about 3-4 weeks ago. It might even have been after the PSV game at Ibrox. I think the manager was asked about Steve Davis, and he basically said, like, as you said, he's still round about the squad. I've actually seen him a couple of times up at the training ground just when we've been there for press conferences, and he's come out after going through his work. He still looks in great shape. He's still in good spirits, and also still a great guy to have around the football club and have around the training ground. Whether he can ever get back to the kind of level required to play for Rangers again, who knows? Obviously, at a certain age and stage in his career, it's just such a shame that he's also spending such a long time on the road to recovery. But there's no update as far as I'm aware on like a time scale. There's no like a match penciled in for him to come in. He's just working through the programme. But still, as the manager outlined a couple of weeks ago, it's still having a big influence on the squad. If you are any player at that football club and you're looking for someone to offer a bit of advice, or to go and have a coffee with, or just get a chat with for 5 minutes after training, there's very few people better than Steve Davis. So even though he's not pulling on his boots and not able to control things from the middle of the pitch, he'll still be having a very important role to play for Rangers over the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, the answer to your question, John, Stephen Davis is 38. I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to go into coaching and end up taking a coaching role at Rangers. I know Michael Beale's spoken before about having that kind of Rangers heritage in the building and the coaching staff, and maybe senior management positions as well. And I see that as something that could happen. Albeit he might want to keep playing if he returns and he can. There's also other clubs in Scotland he could go to. I know he's got a good relationship with Stephen Robinson, for example. I think that's St Mirren's been talked about before, so that could be another option for him. But I think he'll end up one day being a coach at Rangers. We'll wrap this up shortly, Chris, but I mean, we stand on the verge of another European campaign, albeit the results against PSV when is anyone hoped for. But I mean, is there excitement going to Europe again? Obviously, Rangers have done well. We'll forget about last season, but I mean the previous seasons before that, they've done well under Steven Gerrard in Europe. Obviously, that run to Seville under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst as well. Is there optimism that the Rangers can have another good season in Europe? Lots of good away trips, and obviously, you'd hope to be in the Europa League, and you expect them to qualify from that group. But if not, there's that kind of caveat of the Europa Conference League. You've seen West Ham going to win it last season. I think Villa will be very strong for that tournament. But I mean, what's the kind of overriding feeling towards this European campaign?
I think there's probably not huge levels of excitement towards it from a lot of the fans, because everybody's still on a bit of a downer over how the season has gone so far. I've mentioned before about the bubble bursting down at Rugby Park on the first day of the season, and Rangers have still yet to really recover from that. Also, things then getting worse with the PSV game, and then getting really bad after the Old Firm game. But the European campaign, it's something different. It's sort of different teams coming to Ibrox. As you say, there's some good trips in there for the fans. And Rangers are now operating at a level in Europe in a competition where they should be able to win games and pick up points. There's no reason why Rangers can't qualify from this group. That's not to say they're going to go and just tick off the rounds in the knockout stages and go all the way to the final. It'd be great if they did, and there was some great days out and some memorable occasions along the way if they could. Ultimately, that's obviously not the ambition this season. That the Premiership title simply has to be won this season. Time will tell if that's realistic or not. Time will tell what they can achieve in the cups. So I think Europe is a distraction of sorts, but it won't have, or it shouldn't have, all going well, the negative impact that the Champions League had last season. That was a really difficult campaign for Rangers. They drew the worst draw possible in terms of the group. Ended up with 3 really, really high quality sides, and were never able to really recover the momentum that was lost, and took some really sore ones. Ironically, I looked at it the other week there, the results after some of those defeats were actually good. So like losing to Napoli and losing to Liverpool, they then didn't carry that into the immediate result after it. In terms of the Premiership, I think it just fed into the narrative of this is all going one way, and the pressure was also building on the manager. Michael can't afford for that to happen. He can't afford to take some sore ones in the Europa League when he's got no wiggle room at all domestically. So I'm sure he'll be looking forward to them. He'll relish the challenge. It's great from a managerial perspective in terms of getting to test himself against the likes of Pellegrini, to have to go away to tricky venues in Prague and Limassol and try and get results. So I think there's a lot to be gained, a lot to be learned, and hopefully Rangers just get off to a positive start. Because if they don't, then that feeds into the rest of the group stage campaign, can potentially feed into the Premiership. And Rangers have already got enough negativity swirling around the place at the minute without adding to it. So hopefully Europe is a cure to that rather than an addition to it.
Yeah, there's certainly a bit of negativity floating about, but I mean, hopefully Rangers can conjure up some of the form we've had in Europe, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting some good away trips for the supporters, and having a few beers with your mates, going following the team you support. So hopefully there's plenty of them on the way. I think Arne Slot would be a bit wise to remember some of Rangers' performances in Europe after his comments yesterday as well. But from a personal point of view, I'm sure many people share this. I'm absolutely buzzing. European football's back. It fills my Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings watching that. I think there's some big games on tonight, isn't there? Milan, Newcastle, PSG, Dortmund as well. So some really good ties on tonight to watch in the Champions League for anyone wanting to tune in. But Chris, it's been a pleasure being back. A pleasure having your company. I'll see you on Thursday night at the game, of course. But Josh is on holiday, guys. He's away in sunny Greece, getting himself a nice wee tan. I think Derek and Stevie will be back throughout the week. But it's been a pleasure, Chris. Thanks for your company.
No problem at all. I'm looking forward to Thursday night, and I'll catch up with you then.
Take care, guys. Enjoy your week, boys.